Thank you. Can I speak to you in two capacities? One is someone who spent over 4 decades as a legal academic and researcher on treaty or Waitangi policy, focusing in particular on areas of treaty principles, which included my PhD thesis, a number of books, and evidence to a significant number of Waitangi Tribunal hearings, including most recently treaty principles. Well, my second capacity, and this kind of follows from what Marilyn Waring was saying, is as a Pākehā who in Aotearoa believes that we cannot cut ourselves adrift from the foundations on which we and our tupuna were here. And in my case, like Marilyn, my mother's whānau come from a place called Sentry Hill in Taranaki. And I always used to teach my students what Sentry Hill actually was about and for. And so I think those personal stories are very important in us understanding the implications of what this bill tries to do. Secondly, I have also been asked to make a point to the tribunal that there are many, many people, especially many, many Māori, who have put together submissions on this bill, some of whom took flights down to Wellington with sheaths of submissions to get them in here when the website fell over, and who are expecting that their voices will be heard. And so I was asked to bring that before the committee. The committee itself, the bill itself and the explanatory note identify 4 objectives, and I have no particular problem with the objectives. One is greater certainty and clarity. A second is a more robust and widely understood conception of constitutional arrangements. The third is to build consensus around te tiriti and constitutional arrangements to create, to promote greater legitimacy and social cohesion. And fourthly, to promote a national conversation. What I do have a problem with is the provocative way in which that has been proceeded with through this bill that has caused very considerable harm. And I heard that especially during the Waitangi Tribunal hearings and subsequently to that. The proper place for that conversation is in the Constitutional Kaupapa Inquiry that is now underway in the Waitangi Tribunal. And I would invite the Parliament to endorse and the committee to endorse that as the appropriate forum in which to work out how we move forward. I have a different approach from a number of those who have made submissions, and it comes out of my many years of research, which is that I have a problem with the notion of treaty principles themselves. And I remember in 1990 at Waitangi, when Bishop Whakahuipi Thurko said to Labour, "We do not need your principles, we have te tiriti." And my own research, especially in my very lengthy PhD thesis, looked at and traced through the construction of the notion of principles of the treaty in the 1980s, and which brought into the light what Ngā Tamatoa in their 1974 submission on the Treaty of Waitangi bill said. You talk in this bill about treaty principles, but whose principles and who is going to define them? And so the research I did in the 1980s in particular showed how quite cynically the concept of the principles had been constructed. And there was reference earlier to the principles for Crown action on the treaty in 1989. I got leaked a whole series of documents whilst they were being constructed by those who were uncomfortable in doing it because they were basically asked to rewrite Te Tiriti o Waitangi through Crown principles. So to me, this Act bill is a logical extension of those attempts to bypass the realities of what are in Te Tiriti o Waitangi and substitutes them with something that the Crown can be comfortable with. And in my submission, I quote, for example, Sir Robin Cook before the Lands case, saying the Treaty of Waitangi can't really pass muster as a document to take seriously today, and then describing his principles in the Lands case as being a subtle constitutional repositioning, which David Longy repeated in 1990 at the Commonwealth Law Conference in Auckland. And so we need to actually put aside this principles as a vehicle through which we have been avoiding having the constitutional conversation around Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Let me just make 2 further points. The issue about the referendum. It was extremely concerning in the Waitangi Tribunal to hear that the officials have been asked in parallel to this process to be working on implementation of a referendum approach on this bill. Now, we hear this bill is not going to proceed, but that doesn't mean a citizens-initiated referendum cannot be instituted and an attempt to have that at the time of the next election. And already the cogs are moving in that direction. That is a major problem. The second is that even if this bill fails, as we've been told it will, the Regulatory Standards Bill, promoted by the same minister in a manner that has been completely antithetical to what are supposedly best practice regulatory approaches, would effectively write Te Tiriti o Waitangi out of the priorities in the lawmaking processes. And so I think you will expect to find there is an equivalent move on that occurs irrespective of what happens with this bill. And the coalition agreement, unlike this, which says taking this bill to select committee, although David Seymour's remit is and passing it, the Regulatory Standards Bill is to be legislated. And so I invite the Select Committee to seriously consider the implications of that for Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Kia ora.
Thank you for this, Kelsey. We've got two questions lined up. First from Duncan Webb, then Mario Mino Kini.
Kia ora, Professor, and thank you very much for that submission and all the work you've done. I'm interested in the discussion you had around, your lack of enthusiasm for principles, full stop. And I guess how we approach what the treaty means today and how we apply it to real world situations needs some tools, right? And I guess the principles might be a useful shorthand for those tools. But I'm interested in your comment, in your thoughts on how we actually approach the kind of changing obligations under the treaty today due to changing social and wider circumstances if we don't have principles.
I don't understand why you need to have principles. You have very clear concepts from my understanding of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and I've had the privilege of being tutored by people like Rob Cooper from Ngāti Hine in what that actually means. And if we look at the core value structures that underpin that, if we look at manaakitanga, if we look at whanaungatanga, if we look at kaitiakitanga, we can actually see in practice how that plays out. And so I don't see why we need principles to get us to that point.
Thank you, Jane. We'll finish with Mario Mino.
Thank you, Mr. So why do you think? So, because I can hear all your expertise mentioning Rob, that's a neat thing straight away. So what do you think is behind this noise and this distraction, if I can say that?
I think it is actually a political stunt that is about political opportunism and the fact that there is this disingenuous approach of the same minister to regulatory responsibility and to treaty principles suggests that he himself doesn't actually have principles. And we have in the academic other hat I wear about principles-based regulation. We say it only works if those who are involved in regulation have principles.
Thank you, folks. That's the time we've got for this afternoon. So can I just acknowledge your submission today, Professor, and thank you for spending the time.
More receipts. I like the point about what Jane mentioned about the conflict of interest aspect with two particular pieces of legislation that conflict with each other, having the same minister's name to it in charge.
Yeah. Taxpayer-funded advertising for the ACT Party? Yeah, absolutely, Laura. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think about Jordon? Jordon, what do you think about Jane's submission?
I don't know what to say, actually. It's a bit of a...
Because I mean, you've already been there once watching it.
Yeah. I still don't understand it. He's used words that we don't use in a normal context. That's why I like Dr. Ganesh Nana's submission, because he used political tactics, but he also used everyday speech, like, you guys are children in the room, act like adults, not children. Yeah. He was down to earth and made it,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he normalised his submission, which made us listen more intensively, more than the ones that were the academics. And he's an academic, and he got questioned by I've forgotten her name. Said something stupid, and the chair said, "I think we should just throw that out." Because there was a dumb
I can't
question.
remember which question that was.
That was in Ganesh Nana's submission and the question. So it was only
Right,
he was on the right side,
Mm.
and one of I think he's in the Greens or he's in New Zealand. Oh, I can't remember. But he spoke and said that was a stupid question. What was the point in that? Basically, what we gotta realise is we gotta look at ourselves as. So I'm mana whenua. I was born here. I am Maori, and say Sam, were you born in New Zealand?
Yes. The hospital you're standing in at the moment. 6
Right.
generations.
Well, I'm not standing, bro. I'm sitting.
You get what I mean.
Yeah. Yes, I understand.
I mean, put it this way, I'm not eligible for any foreign citizenships by descent because the generations on both sides of my family date back to great-grandparents born in New Zealand. And I mean, this is different areas. Like, I know that my great-grandfather, grandma's father, basically had a very big post-World War II affiliation with Gisborne.
Mm.
And I mean, it is you know how my grandparents, they were Pākehā people, but they educated in Māori areas, and they absolutely loved it because that was what was it. It's really weird because I've got this two-spoke side of the family. I've got my father's side that's been very supportive of it and all that sort of thing. Then I've got my mother's side that tend to sit there and always go about the negative aspects of it. It's a real big juggling act of what happens when you have the two different extremes in the family on one side or the other. And it's, yeah, I mean, and like, put it this way.
So let's put it this way, you're tangata whenua. Put it this way, you're tangata whenua. And me and Stacey are mana whenua.
Yeah. And my mum's side's the side that has the 6th generation part that I know is guaranteed. I'm not exactly how sure on Dad's side whether it's 4, 5, or 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, you were born here. So our old people would have seen you as mana whenua, as tangata whenua, because you were born of this land.
Yeah.
Mana tangata whenua means born of this land. Or of this land.
Yeah.
What land? Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Yeah.
New Tireni, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's our tauiwi that come over on a boat or on a plane. They're of not this land, so they are tauiwi.